I want to kind of take this channel into a slightly different direction. So initially, yes, I created this channel I had a few different things in mind, but it was primarily to share Creole culture and history with everyone, and to kind of carve out a Creole identity, to get us back to having, you know, our own Creole identity, to show the world that, hey, you know, we're here, we still exist, and we're unique, and we do have our own distinct culture, ethnic group, language, everything outside of, you know, the average American that doesn't come from our history. So I wanted to kind of carve that out for us. And I also wanted to explore my own Nicaragüense background and share my Spanish language learning journey with you guys, and also start to learn French, and, you know, kind of encourage other Creoles, Cajuns to start learning French or Goudivini. So it's very culture based, and I also had the side quest of advocating for multiracial people in general, biracial, MGM, just mixed race people, especially Americans, just because of the fact that we're the ones who tend to get bullied into, you know, having to take on a particular identity and ignoring, you know, our whole heritage and what have you. So this was just kind of focused on culture, primarily Creole culture, multiracialism, mixed race identities, that sort of thing. And I'm not completely deviating from that, but what I will say is that as I grow closer to Christ, I cannot continue to ignore the fact that our primary identity is in Christ. Either you are for Christ or you are not. So my family, what Jesus said in the Bible, my family are those who are here with me serving God. That's where your primary identity is at. And that's what I have to cling to first. Now, there's nothing wrong with still appreciating your culture, your background, where you come from, loving it. I want to try to find a different word from pride, because I always say, you know, have pride in who you are. And yeah, but I want to find a different word for that, because, you know, God resists the prideful. So I don't mean pride as in I'm better than everybody else, we're the best, we're better than the rest. No, I just mean loving who you are, what you come from, and, you know, not feeling like, you know, oh, I wish I came from that group, or I wish I looked like those kind of people, or no, love your kind of people and who you are. So it really is just a self-love, a love of family, a love of what you come from and where you come from, but not to the point where we're accepting everything that comes with it as a cultural norm and saying, well, this is what my people do, this is what we do, and uplifting that and praising that when it goes against God. So love your culture and your background and your people. Love all cultures, first of all. But, you know, yeah, have a special love for yours, but not to the point where you're deviating away from God, because God is your first identity. Christ is your first identity. We have a culture in Christ. We have a history. There's church history. There's everything that happened in the Bible. That is our heritage and our history as well. That is our spiritual heritage. So I want to kind of lean into that and talk about that, because yes, this is a channel that's all about identity, and it's still going to be about identity, but it's going to put our identity in Christ on the forefront. And no, I'm not going to completely throw away the Creole thing. I'm Creole. I love being Creole. I love sharing that with you guys. So that's still going to be a part of it. But we're just going to delve into other things as well, outside of strictly, you know, our fleshly, racial, ethnic composition, but, you know, our spiritual identity as well. Because what ends up happening a lot in spaces that, you know, lean so heavily into pride in your race or your ethnicity or whatever the case, we end up a lot of times turning that into an idol, turning that into our God, worshiping our heritage, which in turn ends up being worshiping ourselves or our ancestors. And that's not right. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with loving the culture that you come from, but there's a place for everything, and God comes first above all of that. So I don't want to continuously only talk about me and my people or you and your people, because I talk about other cultures too, but constantly talking about people and struggle and who won't let us be what and who's getting in the way of. It doesn't have to be all that. Focus on God, center God. Talk about the good parts of your culture, but center God. And even in, with me being Creole and part Latina, both Creoles and Latinos are notoriously Catholic people. Now, I'm not Catholic, but, there's still parallels to be drawn. And I can still even connect my Creole, my Latina heritage to the church, especially when you start to explore the French and Spanish specific, Latin European background and how that intersects with the church and church history and what have you. So I want to take a even more ancient approach and digging into all the facets of identity, and even my ethnic identity does even tie into the church and spiritual identity. And although I'm not Catholic, I am Protestant, I do have a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily Catholic, but I do have a lot of understanding and appreciation for Orthodoxy, I'll say, which is kind of it's a close sibling to Catholicism. So I want to get into, even apologetics and comparing and contrasting between Protestantism and Orthodoxy and Catholicism, and just having these conversations even outside of just race, because all of this comes together to make us who we are at the end of the day anyway. And I also want to bridge the gap between Christians or more conservative or traditional type people and language learning. I know that sounds weird, but for some reason, I've dibbled and dabbled into different Discord groups and different groups of culture-centered groups, as well as language learning groups. And these are always generally very liberal groups of people. So I'm always the only one there with my own, with my views. And I end up just leaving, never really making friends, never really even talking. I'll just kind of surf through and see what they're all talking about. And they're in there going ham, going off. I remember I was in one Creole group, and there was a Creole guy who was a Republican, and they were all in there bashing him really bad. And I guess he had to back up and not be in the group anymore. And I was like, why? I don't know what it is about language learning and liberalism. I'm like, are there no other Christians or conservative types who are interested in language learning? I can't be the only one. So I want to kind of create an environment for not only multiracial people and whatnot, but for just Christians who enjoy culture and language learning. Now, I can understand why there's not as many Christians in the whole cultural conversation, because like I said, culture can easily turn into something else. It can easily turn into you kind of making an idol and a god out of that and fixating on that. So I can kind of understand that. But language learning, I don't understand, because the more languages you speak, that's just the more people you can talk to about God, the more people you can reach out to, the more friends you can make, the more I don't really understand the disconnect there, but I would like to try to create a bridge and a connect for people like myself, because I like interacting with other polyglots. I'm saying other, I'm a polyglot, but I'm just a language learning enthusiast. But I like connecting with people who have those similar interests. But once we get outside of talking about languages, we tend to not agree on virtually anything else. So yeah, this is just me. This channel is my way of trying to pull together culture, language learning, church history, Christianity as a whole, all into one, and let's see what we can make of it. Let's see. I might be reaching, I might be stretching. I'm trying to make it all into one, but these are just all the things that I love and that I'm interested in. And I just want the channel to be filled with things that I'm passionate about. Otherwise, I can get, I can get burned out. I can get tired. I don't want to argue all the time. A lot of the mixed race conversation, the Creole conversation, turns into a lot of arguing and bickering and fighting for your life. I don't want to do that all the time. And so, yeah, so the channel is open. I mean, the channel has always been open to anyone. It wasn't only for multiracial people or Creole people. It was for anyone who was interested in hearing our story. And it's still open to anyone, but I think it'll be a lot more, it'll pertain to and speak to people outside of only multiracial people at this point. Because at first you know, even if you weren't multiracial, you might have been interested in hearing our story, but the stories was kind of gonna kind of focus on either being multiracial and or being Creole, which tends to overlap most of the time. But now I want it to be where, you know, even people who aren't necessarily Creole or multiracial, you can identify with the Christian talk and the church history talk, and I even want to get into a little bit of philosophy that doesn't contradict the Bible though. And dive into, you know, current events that affect Christians or multiracial people, and like I said, history. And so just kind of make this a Christian cultural hub, if you will. And like I say, we'll see how it goes. I'm trying to make it work. I'm trying to pull it all together. I know they say to niche down, hone in on one thing, but it's hard to hone in on one thing when you're just so interested in different things. And these things do actually kind of go together, even if it seems like I'm stretching it, but they kind of do all go together. And so yeah, I actually already put all this in I guess it's called the bio on the channel. When the year first started, I had changed the bio and kind of summarized basically what I'm telling you here, because I kind of, when I first, you know, for the new year, I was like, I kind of wanted to go in a different direction anyway. And so this is me like saying, hey y'all, be prepared to go in a different, happier direction. Honestly, if you're happier with Christ, things can be a lot more lighthearted, and we can just be. We can move forward and just be, instead of arguing. Let me be. There's no need to try to tell people to let you be. Ignore people and just be, and move on with those who want to move on with you. And that's what we're gonna do here. So merci beaucoup for watching. Thank you guys for my subscribers who have been here from day one, who've been going on this journey with me. I appreciate you guys so much. I hope you stick around. And I look forward to the new subscribers who will be able to identify with the new topics and things we're going to be bringing up and discussing here on this channel. Again, I appreciate you all so much, and I'm looking forward to a great new year. So I will be seeing you guys later. Au revoir.